Well, this is Dr. Mark Hitchcock here in my office at Faith Bible Church, welcoming you to another episode of Marking the Times. There are a lot of things happening in our world today, as you all know if you are followers of the news, but I think probably nothing more important than what's happening in Israel right now. We talked a couple weeks ago about all the war that was going on over there, really between Israel and Hamas. Lasted 11 days with over 4,000 rockets being fired into Israel. These are turbulent times in Israel, but they're also transitional times. Israel has a new government. So along with everything else that's happening really externally for Israel, you have this internal change that's taking place. And one thing I was thinking about this week is some of you who watch Marking the Times, I know you're an audience that probably understands quite a bit about prophecy, certainly a lot more than the average person. But some people might wonder, well, why do we think about Israel so much? Why do we talk about Israel so much? Well, there's several reasons for that. I'll just mention them quickly. Geopolitically, Israel's important. They're the only democratic government, democratically elected government in the Middle East. They're America's greatest ally there. So they're just important geopolitically. They're important nationally and personally. The only foreign policy statement in the Bible that's clearly stated is in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, where God says, whoever blesses Israel, I will bless. And then he says, the one who curses Israel, I must curse. So as a nation, as individuals, we want to be friends and supporters of the Jewish people, be lovers of Israel. And then prophetically, Israel is the epicenter for Bible prophecy. Most of the prophecies in the Bible, the end time prophecies, hinge one way or another upon the existence of Israel as a nation. Israel is going to be ground zero for the events of the end time. So for all those reasons, Israel is very important to us, should be important to us as Christians. I visited Israel 6 times. I've taken tour groups over there. I communicate often with our guide, Ronnie Cohen, who lives there, and spend a lot of time talking with him about developments there. And I love to go to Israel and to visit Israel. It's one of my favorite places in the world to go. I haven't been there in a year or so, and I'm itching to go back. But with all that said, as I mentioned, these are turbulent times, but these are these transitional times as well in Israel. Jerusalem Post had an article a couple days ago, IDF strikes Gaza Strip after incendiary balloon fires. The truce is over now between Israel and Hamas. Several fires broke out in southern Israel, at least 20 of them sparked by balloons, incendiary balloons that are being floated from Gaza over into Israel. And Israel responded to that with a very strong response and struck a number of military sites belonging to Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So there's a lot still going on and certainly will, I think, throughout this summer. But one of the things that's very important that's happened in Israel is they've got a new government. They have a parliamentary government. It's not like here in America where our elections are kind of set, every 2 years at certain times for different offices. They've elected a new parliamentary government there, and this is the 36th government since the founding of the modern state of Israel in 1948. And I think this is very important because Benjamin Netanyahu now has been removed from power as prime minister, and he's the nation's longest serving leader in their modern history. He served from 1996 to 1999 for 3 years, then served from 2009 to 2021, another 12 years. So he served as prime minister a total of about 15 years of the 73 years that the modern state of Israel has existed. Netanyahu's 71 years old. He's been a strong opponent of Iran, the Iran nuclear deal. And so this is kind of an unsettling time a little bit in Israel to wonder which direction will they go. It's fascinating to me just to think about this politically. Political power is going to be shared really by 2 prime ministers. One man will be prime minister for a while, then he'll give way to another man. So that was kind of part of this compromise to establish this new government. The prime minister now is a man named Naftali Bennett. He's a right-wing millionaire. So many believe that he'll institute and kind of keep up the same conservative policies as Netanyahu. The other man, though, is a man named Yair Lapid, and he's more of a centrist. Naftali Bennett wants to annex most of the West Bank. So in that way, he's very conservative and will probably keep the policies of Netanyahu in place. But we need to be vigilant to watch what's happening, I think, in the nation of Israel with this transition of power there. Many of you know that in Jerusalem, over by the Damascus Gate, a couple of days ago, there were a lot of protests. It got pretty raucous by a lot of the ultra right-wing nationalist groups that are there. So there's turbulence on the inside and transition, and certainly there's trouble on the outside for Israel. And all of it is ultimately coming from Iran. So that will be the big issue going forward: is how will this new government deal with the ongoing threat from Iran? So I'll keep updating you as things are happening there in Israel. Maybe I hear things from some of my friends and contacts that I have there. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us again. It's a great privilege to have you with us. God bless you. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.